Next, I'd like to introduce TraeAnna Holiday. TraeAnna is a community organizer with AfricaTown Community Land Trust. AfricaTown is one of the leading community organizations in the Seattle area, focusing on building empowerment and access to and control of land and institutions by the Black community in Seattle, focused in the Central District. TraeAnna is also with Converge Media and hosts a daily show focusing on community issues, and is one of the lead organizers with King County Equity Now. And if you're involved with any activities in the Black community and in social activism locally, I think that you probably know TraeAnna. And so, TraeAnna, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Jabuna, and great presentation from all of you. I'm so excited to be a part of this work, and I feel like a lot of what I want to bring to this table and bring to this discussion is to share a bit of the work that I'm involved with in this town regarding equity issues and social justice. So what I would like to do is open it up by starting by playing a video of what is a land trust. You know, so much of what we heard in the community was that folks did not know how to engage with us, how to address us, how to work with us. So much of what we really did in the beginning of AfricaTown Community Land Trust was educating the community on what is a community land trust, what kinds of projects do we do, and what is the work that we're really centered around with regard to housing justice. And so, Shiho, if you can play that video real quick, that'd be great.
For nearly 140 years, before Washington was even a state, Black people have called the Central District of Seattle home. It became a vibrant, culturally rich community. Still, throughout this time, they have found themselves under constant attack, forced removals from their property, racist housing covenants, redlining, systemic gentrification programs like Operation Weed and Seed, and now skyrocketing rents due to Seattle's current tech boom that hasn't included all communities. AfricaTown Community Land Trust was formed by concerned community members with the sole purpose of halting this trend, creating avenues to stay rooted, grow, and thrive in place, assuring that Black people continue to be a vibrant part of Seattle's future. So how does AfricaTown Community Land Trust work? ACLT's model is based on other successful land trusts, not only in America, but around the world. What ACLT does is acquire land to create housing and commercial spaces for the community to live and own businesses with permanent affordability. An example of ACLT's work is the New Liberty Bank building in Seattle's Central District. ACLT and its nonprofit development partners were able to create an equitable development framework with the goal of maximizing community participation on the construction of the building, displaced community returning home, and affordable commercial space. The commercial space allows businesses like Earl's Cuts and Styles and That Brown Girl Cooks to remain and grow in the neighborhood, as well as opens opportunities for the legacy of Black-owned businesses to continue in the Central District. The Liberty Bank building has been nationally recognized and awarded for the innovative approach to community sustainability and design. It's also the blueprint for ACLT's next project, AfricaTown Plaza, also located in the Central District of Seattle and slated to break ground in 2021. Although affordable housing developments is AfricaTown Community Land Trust's priority today, we are also working to create opportunities for affordable home ownership. Ultimately, AfricaTown CLT's goal is to create spaces for Black community, culture, and commerce to thrive. But to achieve this goal, we need your support. to help our community stay and flourish in the Central District. Visit AfricaTownLandTrust.org or text the word LAND to 206-309-6324 to find out how to get involved and do your part to help build AfricaTown.
Thank you. Thank you for pulling that video up, Shiho. And thank you for having the link to the video in there, Mike. Much appreciated, you guys. So much of what my work really involves, and I feel like it's kind of centered around, is education. And I love to say edutainment, because nowadays the only way to really ensure that you get somebody's attention when you're trying to educate them on something is to really make it entertaining and make it engaging. And so the work of AfricaTown Community Land Trust, we basically, we were like, look, if there's a Chinatown and a little Saigon or a little Italy or, these other places that represent the best and brightest of that culture, there should be something that does that for Black Americans and those from the diaspora. And so that was really the goal. And I think that video sums it up really well in terms of, the purpose, the reason for it, right? If we didn't see such huge declines of Black home ownership, Black population, particularly in the Central District in the South End, I don't think the alarm, the bell wouldn't have rang as loudly as it did. But because we've seen such stark numbers, and I don't have statistics of that because I like to stay very positive, but the stark numbers are there to showcase that right now, income gap in Seattle, the average Black household is receiving around $42,000, while the average white household is receiving $105,000 a year in income. And so seeing that huge gap is also alarming and causes the need for some type of cultural shift or shift in our societal thinking that allows for that to occur, right? That allows for those statistics to even live and flourish in a city that should be so progressive as Seattle. I also want to uplift the fact that when King County Equity Now really came about this year in regards to civil unrest, the protests, we understood how COVID was disproportionately impacting communities of color, specifically Black and African American communities. We wanted to stop hoping for change, I think, and that meant that we needed to uplift the work of a lot of organizations that have been on the ground fighting for equity, fighting for change with regard to really communities of color, because those are the most impacted communities and the most impacted families. So King County Equity Now said, look, we're going to pull together all of these organizations, and AfricaTown Community Land Trust is one of the anchor organizations of this idea, and this coalition is bringing together those who are doing this work on the ground to create a very collaborative set of demands that then we can go after, right? And we understood, because we're working with organizations who do this work on the ground, we understood immediately that there were low-hanging fruit to be, demanded right away. Fire Station 6 is a prime example of that. And so what you see in what we started to do was pull together all of our brilliance, all of our resources to say, we need to start demanding very specific things right away. And so that's where you began to see the demand as we partnered with Decrim Seattle and Creative Justice and the People's Party around the demands for reinvesting police resources into communities of opportunity and what that can look like. And they've been doing a lot of this research for years, doing a lot of the work to understand the statistics and the data that the numbers really showcase. And the brilliance that we're learning is that the numbers showcase that communities can do certain things better. So what we started to do was host these events. Shiho, you can go to the next slide here. In partnership with other organizations that are in the coalition of King County Equity Now, AfricaTown Community Land Trust, and others began to host events so we could really educate our community. And this started June 5th, as the protest kind of erupted May 29th. I believe our first event was June 5th. And I was already doing a community engagement by doing meals and masks every other Friday in front of the Walgreens on 23rd and Jackson. And so it was becoming a thing. People knew we had done it a couple of times before June 5th. And by June 5th, they said, you know what, let's do a teach-in, let's do a rally. And so we said, okay, let's kind of, publicize this more than to just the community. Let's start, maybe educating folks on, why we have these demands, what these demands are, what organizations have been doing this work on the ground. And so King County Equity Now was birthed out of that, right? So June 5th, I was doing meals and masks right there on Jackson, and we had young organizers who got together and they brought speakers and entertainers and performers to a very small stage in front of Starbucks right there on 23rd and Jackson to just start educating people. And that was the first day that we really launched the KingCountyEquityNow.com website. We began promoting it. At that event, there was roughly 5,000 to 6,000 people there that day. And we only had, I think, 48 hours to plan that event. And so, we had 5,000 people. We're like, whoa, okay, people really want to get educated. So it was a high key indicator that we were onto something with regard to, hey, people don't know what they don't know, right? People don't even understand the history of the Central District. People didn't understand the history of gentrification or predatory development practices that led to gentrification. I think there was a lot of stuff that we began to understand right away, that so many of our, community members living in the Emerald City just didn't have any context for, how the city was built and the history of the city. Again, with our tech boom, I think we see a lot of transplants come in to the city for jobs. And so there is a disconnect sometimes with regard to space and their lived experience, right? Because they come from somewhere else. And so when they get here, they're connected to a job, they're connected to a career that really doesn't always allow for them to dive into the community aspects as much. And so with that, we wanted to, begin to build bridges for folks and really showcase what community building really looks like and what we had in the Central District in my childhood, Joaquin's childhood, so many of our childhoods, what we really saw and how the CD in particular was built. And that really, it resonated with people right away out the gate. And so immediately we said, you can go to the next slide, Shiho. Immediately we said we need to do something for Juneteenth. And so we brought vendors out to Jimi Hendrix Park. We did a march from 23rd and Madison in front of D. Charlene's shop, technically 22nd in Madison, to really showcase, again, the history and the people, the institutions, the individuals that were really involved with shaping what community looked like in the Central District in particular, but also those very same characteristics expand down to the South End. And so we're just so excited because, it was probably 30,000 people that showed up for this march and rally on Juneteenth. And we were excited that we were able to give an opportunity for folks to come out, learn together collectively, and share knowledge about history, right? Let's talk to some elders. Let's bring them up on stage to share some history of this park in particular, maybe the building right there, NAM, right? Northwest African American Museum, to give some context so people understood a lot of the other struggles that led to some of these institutions and a lot of the community resilience that is needed to push movements forward. And so we were just elated because that event showcase, and here you see one of the amazing vendors at one of our events, because then we just started doing events every 2 weeks, y'all. You know, people understood, wait a minute, I need to be educated. These are the guys who've been doing the work. I have no idea who these organizations are, who these community leaders are. I don't know this history of, you know, NAM and this occupation that happened in the 80s, right? Moving up into the early 2000s, and really the longest occupation in American history right here in the Pacific Northwest in our Emerald City. So sharing this history, so many people are just have been awakening and really awakening to this movement. I think obviously sparked by George Floyd's death, yet indicating so many factors that so many people of color have dealt with for many years, you know, since the inception of this country. And so there's been a lot of awakening happening there. One of the things that excites me the most about this particular photo and about the economics that surround these events is that we knew, okay, festivals, everything is canceled. COVID, you know, is canceling everything. It's affecting our Black businesses more than any other business. It's affecting our Black community. What can we also do to bring opportunities for them? And so the first event, we didn't do it as much. The second event, we said, no, we're opening this up. We don't have permits from the city, but we're just going to say, vendors, pull up. There's going to be a crowd. They may want to buy some of your stuff. They may want to know who your brand is or know who you are or connect. I think a lot of people have been looking for that connection, maybe across the aisle, right? Away from politics, but just like, hey, these are groups of people I don't normally associate with, but yet I'm going to learn something amazing if I go over there and I invest myself and I invest some time in with these people. And I think that we saw that spirit kind of arise in the CHOP, and now it's really moving forward in the protest movements. And so in terms of economic opportunity, our events have provided economic opportunity, again, to those Black businesses and Black and Brown and Native and POC businesses, BIPOC-led businesses that have really been affected the most. And it really makes me excited, not only the businesses, but then the artists, the performers, the DJs, people who are used to doing events that, they normally have a huge, schedule for a summer schedule of their events calendar. We said, look, we're going to take some of these donations that we're getting because people understand this movement, and we're going to do equity right now for our community. We're going to invest it in, the young dancers. We're going to give a stipend to the Diamonds who came out and led our march for Umoja March and Day of Unity. We're going to uplift opportunities like Melvin Freeman, who just did that mural on the wall. We're going to showcase the best and brightest of our community, and also give awareness to our community and all of the great businesses and creatives that are within it, because so much of this in regards to donation, support, philanthropy, so much of it is about exposure, and so much of it is about awareness. And so we've been this summer really on an awareness campaign, not just for AfricaTown Community Land Trust, but for all. Now there's over 100 organizations that have signed on to King County Equity Now, and we are doing this work to uplift their work as well. As a coalition, we say, look, log on to kingcountyequitynow.com. Right there, you can see the list of organizations who have signed up with us. You can decide to donate to one of them. You can learn about them. You can say, wait a minute, I didn't know that there was, a group focusing on solely on, you know, DJs and artists. Well, man, let me figure out how to connect with them. Or I didn't realize that these, you know, they're focused on young people. They're helping them stay out of the court system, which is so detrimental to their adult lifestyle, and the trajectory and progress of their lives. Many times the court system and any kind of criminal system stunts the growth of the person who's going through that. So it's really important for us to begin to uplift this work. And that's really what the coalition is doing. It's uplifting the work of all of these local nonprofits that have been doing this similar equity work on the ground for many years without the recognition, without the awareness. And we really want to uplift them and showcase to people, hey, there are multiple ways for you to get involved if what you want to do right now is connect with a larger community. Next slide. So this is what I mean by giving artists and performers opportunities. Again, bringing on the alumni from Total Experience Gospel Choir that you see here. It was another way for us to invest in them as an institution, because so much of what happens in the wake, unfortunately, of gentrification is that a lot of institutional, community-based programs, organizations, opportunities become non-existent. As a leader has to leave the community, then that leader's work kind of leaves the community with them. A lot of times what we see is huge shifts in opportunities, particularly for young people, with regard to the institutions that are in their communities. When so many of our Black and brown families were gentrified out of the Central District and South End that they knew, grew up in, loved, learned, born and raised in, a lot of folks are now moving to South King County. And what we're seeing is that the South King County cities were not equipped to actually deal with this large influx of, you know, BIPOC families moving into their communities. And so the opportunities around programming and activities that are culturally responsive just isn't there. So we really want to keep a hub here. As AfricaTown Community Land Trust, our main goal is to really keep a hub of culture thriving in the Central District that allows everybody to stay plugged into, connected with, and gives them that sense of community. That's what we're doing. In the video, we mentioned, it mentions AfricaTown Plaza, our next project, which is settled on 23rd between Spring and Union. And we're between 23rd and 24th on the Spring Street side. And we're excited for that because that is an iconic corner in the Central District that had so many Black businesses thriving right there, 23rd and Union. So that block is iconic for us. And we're excited to be working in affordable housing, but we also partner with Homestead Community Land Trust with regard to affordable home ownership opportunities, because we do want to provide a great variety for folks to say, look, yes, I'm from the Central District, I'm from the South End, and now, you know, with the work of AfricaTown Community Land Trust, I can return back to my community. We're working on affordable housing projects right now, but partnering with Homestead Community Land Trust allows us to bring those home ownership opportunities that are also affordable to our community. So that's what, you know, that's the work of us. And for Converge, on the Converge side, I don't have a slide of Converge, but Converge, we produce the morning update show every day, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. You can find us on Converge Media on Facebook, but really that Converge started 4 years ago with Omari Salisbury and Eric Calligraphy, who what they wanted to do was bring a voice of community to media. And so much that happens in the community is not picked up by major media streams. So this was the goal for Converge originally. With the protest movement, Converge got really gained a large audience, as you know, a lot of our producers were out there on the streets in the chop every day, really following the protest. But that platform is, again, to uplift the works in the community, to uplift the individuals and leaders and a lot of the work that's being done, and bring awareness to that so that folks really have a full understanding of how our community is building itself in the wake and face of such devastating gentrification that we've seen here. So thank you guys all so much for giving me time to speak on these three kind of organizations that I'm a part of: AfricaTown Community Land Trust, King County Equity Now, and Converge Media. I really appreciate it.